Hello and welcome to Your Life, Your Way. I'm your host, Kathleen McDermott, and also creator of Yogalosophy, Stress and Lifestyle Management Coaching. I have another wonderful guest with me today. Dr. Tanya English, Chiropractor for Your Soul, is here to talk with us about finding our way from tragedy to treasure. Dr. Tanya helps mothers and their families who have experienced stillbirth and pregnancy loss. She has over 30 years' experience in healing, and she is an accomplished blues singer. I hope something in today's interview touches you and helps you to embrace the possibilities in your life to live it your way. Well, Tanya, Dr. Tanya English, I'm thrilled to have you with me today. How are you? You look fabulous.
I'm great. I'm glad you got the memo.
I did. We're dressed very similar today. So Tanya, how have you been? I really am so anxious to hear your story today and to have you share your story with my listeners.
Yeah.
Your history has certain areas that I just am personally very fond of. You have a path that's huge in energy work, which is very important to me. What I would love to have you share is your background, your story. Where did you start? How did you get onto this path? And then if we will guide into the very important work that you do, because you serve women in a way that is it's personal to me as well. And it does come into loss and the grief that we carry through loss.
Yeah.
So if you would just begin by telling us your journey and what brought you to.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me. I'm so glad to be here with you, Kathleen. So many years ago, when I was about 15 years old, I was doing summer stock, like the way you heard about it in the olden days, where they do a show a week. And we had a summer stock theater right in the town where I lived. And so I was doing costuming and running around behind the scenes and got on stage a few times and decided that I really wanted to do theater and acting and directing. And so I did my undergraduate in acting and directing and stage production. And so after graduation, I had a really terrible experience right before I graduated doing a show, and I had a really terrible experience right after I graduated doing a show. And I just thought, maybe just take a break. Maybe, I've been doing this since I'm 15. I'm about 23 right now. Maybe just see what else is out there. And I put it out to the universe that I wanted to find a massage school. And lo and behold, there was one 4 blocks from my apartment.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay. So I took 2 of the most difficult courses, the book courses, which was diet and nutrition and also anatomy and physiology. And I took those 2 courses and I thought, oh, I really like this. This is really great. So I transferred to a different massage school in the heart of Manhattan and went to the Swedish Institute, which is the very first school of massage in this country, founded by Ling, who was a Swedish person who developed Swedish massage. And so I went to the school, I graduated, I started working, I did all different kinds of things. I worked in hotels, I worked in health clubs, I did house calls, I worked in chiropractic office. And that was my favorite because I could see the people coming back over and over again and create relationships and see the progress that they were making in their health and their wellness. And it's also a much more protected environment. You can get all kinds of people coming into a hotel and a health club.
This is true. I hadn't thought about that, but you're right. Yes.
Yeah, and for women, it can get kind of dicey. And so I decided I was going to work in chiropractic offices. I had a great chiropractor that I worked with for a while, and then I decided, well, why don't I just be a chiropractor? So I moved to Iowa from the East Coast and went to Palmer and met a great guy. My second trimester, it's 10 trimesters to get through the program, and my second trimester in, I met my husband. And so all my plans of being this continental European, half Europe, half US practice shot to hell, but that's okay. I'm still with him. So
He's a
it
good
turned
man.
out to be a good decision. And so I started my practice here in Iowa. And as I was practicing, well, just before I graduated, we got married and I was pregnant and expecting our first child together. He had 2 daughters from his previous marriage. And at the very end of our pregnancy, I was in labor and our son was stillborn. And I was 33 years old, laying in the hospital bed, knowing that I was going to deliver a baby that was already gone. And I thought, okay, this is a big deal. This is something serious, and I need to learn what is going on here because this doesn't happen for no reason. And there's something here for me. And I had to make a decision whether I really believe things happen to the highest good or not. And so I decided, yes, I believe that. I'm going to go with that. This is happening to the highest good. Okay, now show me the good. Bring it on because I need to see it. And what I realized was that what you seek, you'll find. And I was looking for the good, always looking for the good of the situation. And so I kept being shown good things. Now, that doesn't happen to everybody, and not everybody makes that kind of decision in their life, but that's what happened to me. And what I saw was this incredibly loving, nurturing husband that I had. I had only a couple of friends came by to see me. The school never sent a word to me, never said anything to me, not even a card or anything. And I was like, oh, institutions don't really care. They can say a lot, but they don't really want to get involved. So that kind of set up for me like, what is it really? What am I doing really in healing? I mean, it really rocks your world when you think, well, I'm a healer and I can't deliver a child. So what is this? Show me what this is. Show me what I need to do to heal from this because this is a big deal. And we had several very interesting kind of paranormal things happen after he was born and we came home. Just very interesting things. So being open to what is there for me and asking source to give me what I needed to do healing was very interesting. So one of the things that happened was we're standing in the living room and we had windows all around the living room and we saw a blue balloon go floating by the windows. And I looked at Ed and he said, "Did you see that?" And I said, "Yeah, did you?" He's like, "Yeah." We went outside. There's no parties around. There's nobody around. And this balloon floated by our windows at like the second story, just horizontally floating this way. Very odd.
Very odd. Very odd.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, the blue balloon. I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Red Balloon. It's about a little kid following a balloon around Paris.
That is so familiar.
Yeah, it's very familiar to a lot of kids, my age anyway. But it was just like this reassurance that like, oh, I'm floating, it's fine. And it was really interesting because I never felt like that we had this very intense connection. I had never been delivering a baby before, so I didn't know what to compare it to. But I've asked several people who should know these things, and they're like, no, we didn't come through. And then later I had a beautiful live birth baby. It was 3 hours of labor and standing up to deliver, and it was awesome. And he's going to be 26 next month. So things do turn out well.
Yes.
But one of the things that happened when I was going through that healing experience after Eddie's birth was I found myself at the Mississippi Valley Blues Festival, and I went to see the Blind Boys of Alabama in the tent stage, and I had a healing like I've never had before. It was amazing. And I just felt waves and waves of love coming through me, coming toward me, all around me.
Beautiful.
It was beautiful. So fast forward 18 years later, my husband and I started a blues band together. And my mentor in blues singing is best friends with the last surviving member of the Blind Boys of Alabama. And she tells him about me, and he says, I want to meet her. So we had dinner with them before their performance a few years ago. And then this past September, I actually performed at the Mississippi Valley Blues Fest in the tent stage and delivered Healing with the Blues. So, yeah, lots of full circle moments happened last year. That was one of them.
Tanya, can you go back to,
Yeah.
I do believe we reach a point, just from my own personal experience, that I would like to know how long it took you, because it doesn't sound like it took you very long. When you were going through and you said, I asked, okay, what is the good in this? And you want to see the good in it. Was it quick? Did it take you days? Did it take, how do you find that? Because I found from my own challenges in life, well, maybe I'm a little bit more stubborn and I tend to want to be knocked down before I finally get the message. And I think we do. We all reach our own point of saying,
Yeah.
okay, I can stay here in this suffering, or I can find my way out. How did you find your turnaround time in wanting to
Well,
heal it?
I think I kept turning around, because you go through waves of like, this is so awful. How could this have happened to me? But I would say, well, people addicted to crack have babies, so you didn't do anything wrong. Like, I wasn't living a negative life. But we saw the ultrasound and knew that his heart wasn't beating. And I looked at Ed and he looked at me and I said, "Are we okay?" Because see, that happens. A lot of couples just go.
Yeah, that's true.
And I said, "Are we okay?" And he said, "Yes, we're okay." And I said, "All right, then I can do this." And then when I was lying there in the bed and, having every intervention that you don't want to have, I mean, we were having our baby at home. And the medical doctor that came in blamed us, blamed our midwives. I had Pitocin, I had epidural, I have all these things that I just didn't want because they want to get that baby out. And I was lying there in the bed before, like in the middle of all that, thinking, this is a 2x4 of harsh reality. I'm 33 years old and this is happening in my first full-term pregnancy. What in the world is going on here? I've been a good person. Why is this happening to me? What terrible thing did I do to deserve this?
So you
And
did
then it
ask
was like,
normal
boom.
question.
No, it's not about you deserving this. It's about you learning from this. So, are you going to believe that everything happens to the highest good or not? And it was like, okay, I'm going to put my attention on good. I'm going to count it all joy, even though I know this is going to be hard to get through and eventually I'll be okay with it. But, there was a real temptation to go down that road of like, well, I could just check out of my life. Nobody will wonder why. I have the perfect excuse to just go, I don't feel like it anymore. Right?
Right?
Who's going to question that?
That's
Nobody.
not common. And, and it brings us back to mental health, and that there is no shame in needing support and having that depression or anxiety, whatever it happens to be, that pain, suffering.
Yep.
It's
So we
okay.
went to the support group at the hospital.
Good.
We went one time and I went, this is terrible.
Oh,
There
okay.
were people that were there and had been there for 7 or 8 years.
Wow, I
There
wouldn't.
was a woman there who was taking her toddler with her and throwing herself on her baby's grave. I mean, I said to Ed, I don't feel like that. I don't feel like that's me at all. I feel like God's going to show me what I need to know and it's all good. I'm just going to count it all good because there's something here for me.
Mhm.
Otherwise, this wouldn't have happened because I believe everything happens for us, not to us. So whenever I get into that mental loop that we can all get into, like, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this? Right? Then I can go, no, what are you learning from it? What do you want to learn from it? Because seeking you'll find. What are you seeking? Are you seeking to be closer to source? Are you seeking to, embellish yourself. What is it that you are looking for? Because you're going to find it. So
Well,
I told Ed when I met him, I said, I want to experience as much love as I can in this lifetime. And he's like, well, you're going to have babies then. I was like, really? I am? Because that was not on my radar at all. I was not about. So I ended up with 3. I ended up with his 2 girls and our son together.
well, it's a very powerful story, and I never would have expected that you would have found folks that have been. Now, if I step back and look at it for a minute, comfort zone. One thing that I have tried to be aware of myself is, okay, you've gotten out of your comfort zone, but don't make this your comfort zone. So if you've gone into the therapy, do you think that became a new comfort zone, a new safe? I mean, 7 or 8 years, that's a long time to not have progress.
Oh yeah, people. As we left that support group, I was like, well, I still have trepidation about things. Thinking, I mean, it took me a while to get out of every time there's something good, something bad will happen. Every time something's good, and also he's gonna die now. Now he's gonna see the baby died, so he could die. Everybody could die around me, and that took a long time for me to like not have weird dreams like that and unconscious, feelings about people leaving and good being always followed by bad. But that was cleared up long ago. Um, it did take some time though. So I think people get stuck in therapy because they're talking about it, they're talking about it, they're talking about it instead of like, what can I learn from this experience? They don't ask that question. They just ask why, why? And why isn't that helpful? How
No,
about just like, what can I do with this? And one of my, there's certain scripture that I just love, and one of them is James 1:2. Count it all joy. Because labeling things as negative or positive or bad or good is exhausting. It's just exhausting. So why not just find the good in everything? Why not just look for that? It makes
choose
it
the
really
label.
simple.
We choose the label, and everything that
Exactly.
we put a label on, we choose it. So I hear what you're saying. Why not just choose the good label all the time?
Yeah, just choose that, and then you don't have to do all of this haranguing yourself or others about why did this happen and it's so awful. And then there's no blame and shame either. Then it's my responsibility to learn from it. So as I take on more responsibility, which is not heavy, by the way, it's very light. It's very light to be able to say, I wonder what I can learn from this experience instead of taking it personally. The Four Agreements is a great book because,
My favorite.
yeah, I mean, if you don't assume and you don't take anything personally, those 2 are the biggies that people
They
do all the time.
certainly are.
There are soap operas that have run for 50 years that are based on those 2 things, taking it personally and assuming. And it's only for drama. And if you realize that those things are for drama in your life and you stop doing it, then you don't worry about it anymore. People don't all want to work with me. Not everybody in the world wants to work with Dr. Tanya. So you have to get to a point where you're not taking it personally because it's not you, it's them. And it's not that there's something wrong. It's just not right timing or it's not the right fit or the energy's off. It's fine. And we were
Exactly.
just talking about this beforehand, how energy changes and when you move something out of the way, something really simple shows up.
Exactly.
And so it's like, okay, well, if it's not working and it's not, and it doesn't, and it creates the same situation over and over again in your life, then maybe it's time to look at now, what am I contributing to that? But if it's somebody rejecting you and the people, like I'm saying, if somebody is rejecting you and you keep getting this rejection and that seems to be a theme in your life, then there's something going on with you. If it's other people that are having a problem, then it's their problem. So you don't have to take it on personally.
And I found that through my own, excuse me, through my own journey and exploration, doing what I call the deep dig, it's brought me to a point where when I have what I call a review process, whether it be a reaction to something or a why me, it's very quick where I go, just what you just said, apparently there's something I either need to analyze, work on, sit with, but it becomes quick and it almost becomes, I'm very curious, especially when it's something that I thought, nip that in the bud. Well, apparently, for whatever reason, I need to know and experience that brief review process. And it might be so that I have that awareness for someone else, even if it's just in only energy.
Absolutely. In fact, that you mentioned that the other day I was in meditation prayer with Source. I call God Source because God triggers people. So I say Source.
I'm one of those that gets triggered.
We need to work on that.
I'm working on that. I mean, I'm a universe gal, Mother
Yeah,
Universe.
yeah. So I was with Source and I'm like, okay, so show me what this is. What is this crunchy part of me that's like that's like in protection mode? What is that all about? And I got all this information and then I used it with my dad because he's one of my best patients. And he's like, "Oh, that's deep." I'm like, "That's so cool." I'm like, "Yeah." And then I used it with a client because we're universal people. I mean, people that we're all very unique, yes, and we're all very
Yes, we
alike.
are. Yes, we
So,
are.
so I'm asking all the time, is this appropriate with this person? And if I get a yes, then I'll go ahead and use it. Something that I gained because I'm the I'm like patient zero. I'm the client zero, right? So if it's going through me, then it's for somebody else too.
This is true.
So,
Let me ask, because when you were saying, I always ask first, and one
mm,
thing that I do like to talk about, I do talk about, is as far as where stress comes in, is
mm.
the noise that is just not going on in our world outside of us, but the noise that's going on in us.
I mean the ringing.
Oh my gosh, the noise, there's some
Yeah.
days there's so much noise in my head, and it is a practice. Just because you're a coach or a healer, a guide, an energy work, a massage, whatever you happen to be, it always continues to be a daily practice. I say sometimes hour by hour.
Mm,
But
it's true.
unless you're able to quiet that noise,
Well, I've
even,
had a lot of practice with that
yeah,
because I went to Quaker school. So we sat in silence for an hour. Imagine 400 teenagers in a room sitting in silence.
no, because my report card always said, talks out of turn, talks out of turn.
We're all sitting in the meeting house on campus in silence. And if you feel moved to speak, you get up and speak. So guess who used to get up and speak a lot? And I told my friends later we've been doing Zooms together in the last year, and they're like, "You don't speak in meeting very much." I'm like, "Well, I've it's been an exercise for me because I'm always getting stuff from source, always. If I quiet down, I'll get the answer, and I'm used to that. I'm used to that. It started when I was about 11 years old, and I got to peek behind the curtain, and I was like, "Oh, oh, I see." I'm in charge, but okay, but you are, but I am. Okay, I got it. And I didn't really fully understand that until much later. But when I had that experience, I was like, I know stuff that other people don't know. And how do I fit in with the rest of the world? I have a client right now that I'm working with, and one of the things that's been hard for her is that she sees all this stuff going on, and then she remarks on it, and people get offended. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. You're seeing all this stuff going on, keep it to yourself. Because right now, in the situation that you're in, that's not going to be helpful for you to remark on these things. So I'm teaching her how to use this power that she has, which is observation, and it's almost like a hyper observation of people and their state of being and the energy around them. Sort of like if somebody sees auras,
Mhm.
right? You wouldn't go up to somebody and say, "Oh, you're so orange today," right? So she's learning how to kind of keep it to herself and go, "Okay, that's for something else. That's not for here." And it's been kind of crazy for her because it's hard for her to see it, how does this fit in when your family doesn't have any place to put that for you. Like, most people in our culture are taught not to listen to their intuition, not to be aware or acknowledge their negative feelings, and just tone it down.
So
Why don't you?
true. Spot on.
And they're also not taught to use their psychic ability. Everybody has it. Everybody has it. I mean, how many times do you have to pick up the phone and have the other person there on the end before you realize there's something psychic going on? But because we've been taught that it's negative and bad, we don't exercise those muscles, intuition and psychic ability. So those senses that we have, the 7 senses, I say, those senses are atrophied. So when somebody has that as a natural ability and they're taught to push it down, it can make them sick, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally ill. So one of the things that I like to do is help people use their gifts that they've been given in a way that enhances them, that builds them up, that is is saying to them, I have this gift and I can use it to my highest good. And my highest good is good for everybody.
This is true. Good energy is good for everyone. And it
Yeah.
just helps support someone else to bring theirs out even more.
Right. And you're training people around you subconsciously all the time how to treat you and how they should treat themselves. So if you're enhancing your gifts and you're using them to your highest good, you get to ripple that out to everybody, which is really nice.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, everything that you've been through,
Hmm.
and I know you specialize in certain
Hmm.
areas to support women. Can you tell us
Right.
a little bit about that and how you're
Yeah.
forward
It's
with it?
really about transforming a tragedy into a treasure. It's about the treasure that's locked in that tragedy that you will never ever get to if you don't look at it. Now, for me, it was my natural thing to say, "Let me see what's in here. I know this is a big gift. How tragic this is how huge the blessing can be that comes out of it." Think about that for a minute.
Mhm.
How tragic it is how big the blessing can be. So this deep well of tragedy that people have, I've had a miscarriage, I've had a stillbirth, I've had 2 pregnancy losses. That's just my reproductive self, right? That's not counting the other stuff that's happened in my life, because there's more. There's always more. And
Yep.
my new mantra is, I don't need to have something break down so I can learn, right? I can just learn. That's okay. I can just go, "Ooh, I got that."
Usually,
So
can you just give me one day? Could you just give me 5 minutes without any lessons?
so you have this well of all these terrible things, but we are taught and told over and over again, but we won't believe it, that there's blessings in there,
Mhm.
there's treasure in there.
I've learned, yes, there
But
is.
if you don't want to go in there, you're not going to get them. And so, what I have developed is a really gentle way of taking people into those experiences, not in a deep way where they have to relive it, not in a way where they have to tell me all about it, because they don't, who needs to hear it again? But how about in a way that shows you different facets of this amazing jewel that you are? Because that's what we are. We are divine expressions of unconditional love.
Mhm.
That's what I believe everybody is. It's a very Quaker thing to say. There's that of God in every person. So it's in every cell, every molecule, every atom, all the space in between, it's in there. So what if that light is always shining, God is love, love is everywhere, God is everywhere, source is everywhere, then all I have to do is move into that light. That's all. Really simple. But you got to drop some baggage off in order for it to be easy.
You have to understand, you
So
have to learn, you have to be willing to see what that baggage is and
you
understand.
gotta you gotta get over the unforgiveness.
Mhm.
If somebody ever says to you or you hear yourself say it, "I'll never forgive them," oh boy, you're gonna pay for that. So you gotta drop the unforgiveness. You have to drop the judgment against yourself, mostly. and then all others as well. And you have to love everybody. You have to find something that you can love about everybody. You have to. That's what we're called to do. We're called to forgive and we're called to love.
And forgiveness
And
is so self-healing.
oh, it's the most amazing thing. I say it's the universal solvent. Like you soak a
Yes.
little while in forgiveness, and you're gonna come out brand shiny new. Boy, it is awesome.
Have you
Because when
seen
you,
the film The Shack?
oh yeah, I've read the
I
book
My
and seen.
mom has read the book, but she didn't see the movie, and I put it on for us to watch yesterday. And
How did
wow,
you like it?
well, she just loved it. She loved the book, and she really just really enjoyed the movie. And I enjoyed the film very
Yeah.
much. But the talk of forgiveness there was just incredibly painful and yet freeing. And that's what we miss, the part that how freeing this work is.
You have no idea how freeing it is if you're holding on to unforgiveness, and the only thing that you're doing is you're holding it against yourself. So it's like you're holding yourself hostage. So
Mhm.
if I'm holding a knife to my neck and I say, I'm going to cut her if you do anything different, like, really? How long can you live like that?
It's
I
not
know
like
people that have died in unforgiveness, and it's not a pretty sight, and it's not good, and it rips their bodies apart. Unforgiveness is a detrimental thing, and that's the thing that causes the most problem, I think, in the world. It's not a lack of love, it's the unforgiveness. So acceptance and of the past, acceptance of where you're at, acceptance, like, forgive yourself. So one of the things I kept asking myself is when I was going through that experience of stillbirth is, what did I do? Like, I kept going over and over what I did. What did I do that caused this to happen? And then having a medical doctor say it's your fault. It's the midwife's fault.
get me going there.
You've been led down the garden path, and I'm like, really? Because nobody's ever died here, right? I mean, are you kidding me? And the midwives I was working with had never lost a baby, ever. Hundreds and hundreds of babies they delivered. Anyway, one of the things I asked was, what did I do wrong? And it really was a terrible question, because what if this was a gift and I'm just going, oh, this is shitty, this gift. I hate this gift. It sucks. It's so bad. It's rotten. Take it back. I mean, basically, that's what I'm saying. If
True.
I, so instead of saying, like, no, let me see what's in here. There's something here for me. This is a big deal. This is life or death happening inside my body, and I want to know what this is about. Then, oh my gosh, I learned techniques that uncovered emotional baggage for myself, my family, all my patients. People have had miracle healings. How did you do that over the phone? I'm like, well, we're just doing it. That's what we're doing. We're doing healing. I had a client this last year, and she's like, well, I don't think I should do this because, I'm old, and it's really not a baby that I lost. I'm like, doesn't matter. What happened? She said, well, my daughter-in-law was like my spiritual sister, and she died, and I'm just in terrible grief about it. And I said, oh, well, we'll work on that. So she took the webinar that I was doing, and I'm going to do it again as a master class coming up in a couple weeks. And she took it, and she said, oh, this is great. I really want to work with you on this. And I said, okay. And so we set up times and scheduled everything. And the first session, she's like, I feel so much better. I thought this was going to take weeks. And I said, oh, no, we're doing it right now. And then toward the end of the sessions, she said, I'm going on this cruise with my family, and we're going to go up the Rhine River, and it's going to be so great, but I don't think I can take any of the excursions because my hip hurts so badly. And I'm like, oh, really? Your hip's hurting? Would you like to take care of that right now? She's like, yes. So we took care of the hip. And she said, and this is over the phone.
Mhm.
And she's like, it doesn't hurt anymore. And I said, I know, this is healing. This is what we're doing. We're healing it. And she's so
Wonderful.
funny. She's like, oh, I'm so old. And I'm like, how old are you? She said, I'm 88. She turned 89 while we were working together. And she said, I kicked that, what did she call her? Um, Dottie Downer, I think she called her. I'm kicking her to the curb. I said, you should have a party. So she said, I'm going to have a party. I'm going to invite my friends over. I said, will you make silly hats and take a picture for me? And they did. And it was just a hoot. So she had this incredible cruise. I called her up in October, November, and I said, did you go on the cruise? And she's like, yeah, it was great. I went on all the excursions. I had so much fun.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So, yeah, when people's like, oh, well, I'm fine. I'm like, really? Okay.
And it's so jazzy. It's just so, sometimes I can't find the right words that when we do something that we think we can't, when we release things and we move forward, and people say, oh, it's so hard. Oh, if it were only that easy, but it's so worth it.
Is that
It's
easy?
so worth it.
It is that
No
easy.
matter what age you are.
The hardest part for most people is to just say yes to themselves. Just
Yes.
say yes.
Yes.
Because they've heard no a lot. And there are people who I've worked with who will have a miracle healing and then they'll think about it and they'll come back with a no. Because that's how used to saying no to themselves they are. Oh yeah, I had a miracle healing, but no, I don't want to do anymore. Like, are you kidding? Really?
Do you think it's fear that
I
stops?
think the habit is to say no. The habit is if I can do all these things, then I don't get the secondary gain of not doing it, right? Because we perpetuate things if we're getting secondary gain. If we're getting a lot of attention for being ill, then we don't want to be healthy because then we have responsibilities.
Oh, that's another whole podcast episode.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it becomes like, so I don't judge when people say no because it could be, first of all, it's a habit that they say no to themselves. Second of all, if they come up with some nitpicky reasons, I know it's their ego that's getting in the way. And ego is like
It's a
my
big
friend,
role.
one of my friends says, ego is necessary to have, but you put it in the back seat, in a toddler seat, facing the back of the car. You don't let them drive the car. So that's a lot of times somebody's letting their ego drive the car. Well, you were like this to me, so I'm not going to work with you. I'm like, is that really enough of a reason not to have miracle healing? I don't know.
Well, that comes back to what you said earlier about intuition. You need to, it's so good to learn which is that ego voice and which is the intuition.
And I'll tell you, it's always somebody who said, well, I thought about it and I prayed about it and I meditated on it, and the answer is no. And I'm like, that's not the answer. The answer is not no because of the meditation. That's not why. It's never not why. Because thinking about it, praying about it, and meditating on it is giving them all this time to come back with a no, which is what they're used to. Oh, do you think I should do this? No. Even in muscle testing, that's why I tell people, don't ask the question if you already know what you want to do. Just deal with the consequences of your decision.
Oh, now there you go, because everything is a choice. It's what are the consequences? Why I don't have a choice? Yes, you do. It's the consequence.
It's you always have a choice, and you can, when I'm teaching muscle testing, I just put a new video up the other day because the one I had on teaching muscle testing was 11 years old. That's how long I've been using the internet to teach people. I know it seems like yesterday, but I was like,
You know who to call when I'm having
I
a
don't look like that anymore. I need to do a new one. So I did one, and it's really about letting yourself be clear and open to what's coming up. If it's a yes or a no. Sometimes it's something you don't want to do. Is it a good idea for me to go to this party? Yes. Oh, I really don't want to go. And then I go to the party and there's somebody there that needs to talk to me, that is going to get something from, or I'm going to get something from them, and I needed to meet them. So it's really about allowing Source to manage your life for you, which is way easier than us managing our lives. I mean, I have a great imagination, but it's not the same as the imagination Source has.
So take us to tell us a little bit about, you mentioned you have a master class coming up. I know you have a particular program.
Mhm.
Could you just tell my listeners a little bit about that and
Yeah, for
how they might
sure.
be able to get in touch with you?
So it's called Five Simple Ways to Go from Grief to Relief. And what we do in that, and this time I'm going to be teaching it as a master class. So it's going to be a 90-minute class. I'm condensing it so people don't have to come back 5 times in a row and talk about grief. But really, it's so much less about grief and so much more about the relief part. So I'm teaching in that class how our subconscious creates pathways, emotional pathways. So we can be triggered easily by something that starts that emotional pathway going. And it's really simple. So when you're talking about post traumatic stress, that's part of it. And everybody, just about everybody, has post traumatic stress. But because we don't actually deal with that on a social cultural level, we have to teach people how to do that. So we do emotional freedom technique. I use bioenergetic synchronization technique. I use theta healing. I use guided meditation. I use prayer. I use all kinds of things. Whatever source gives me to use, that's what I'm going to do. And we might do 3 or 4 different techniques in one session. So during the master class, I'll be doing some of that. We're going to do breathing techniques. I'm going to teach people how their physiology changes according to their thoughts, and it's a very simple exercise. And to have people understand just exactly how powerful their thoughts are and how powerful those emotional pathways can be, especially if they're worn with high intense emotion or over and over and over again emotion. So those pathways are created. And I'll just give you a little hint about that right now. If you're driving to the grocery store, are you thinking about driving? Or are you thinking about what you're going to get at the store?
What I'm getting at the store.
Because the pathway for you to do the driving is worn. So you don't
Mhm.
need to think about it with your thinking mind. You just do it automatically. And you can think about, and then you go, oh, I need to turn here, but that's so fast, you're thinking, oh, and potatoes, I need to get a potatoes. But the driving part of it is this subconscious thing. So those pathways get worn, they become subconscious, and now you're doing that pathway. And it can happen with any emotion, and it especially happens with negative emotions because they're traumatic, so high intensity. And it can happen when you're in the womb, and it can happen before you're verbal. So you might not really know what it's going to set it off, but then it becomes this pathway that's well worn, and now your body's doing that emotion. That emotion's continuing to go because each emotion has its own physiology. Just like relief feels different than happiness, but they're both positive.
So what you're saying is that doing 1, 2, 3, whatever the guided energy work is specific to the individual,
Mm,
even if they don't know where the trauma originated from, it can still work through that.
absolutely. And we can work through stuff that you're not aware of. And sometimes we get into past lives, and it's not important to believe in past lives. It's a way for us to categorize when something happened. And it's not a belief you have to hold. It's really more important what the story is that happened than it is for you to I mean, we're not going to go back and do research to find out if this thing happened. But oh, you really Cleopatra? And basically nobody was famous. So like you're not going to find out, right? Darn. but but what'll happen is that pathway is worn, so we want to clear that up, and this is the way it's described to me when I'm doing a reading. So the way that I bring people into the work, and this is what I'll be offering too, is an intuitive energy scan. And that's when I'm
I have
looking at,
experienced myself and I love.
yeah, we get to see a person in a more holistic way. So you get to see all these aspects of yourself. We use the chakra system because it's a great way for us to look at all these different spiritual, physical, emotional aspects of who you are. And you're, like I said, a divine expression of love. So You're awesome. And we're going to find that there's 2 questions I ask. What's your greatest pain and what's your greatest joy? And the pain can be physical or emotional or mental or spiritual, and the joy can be anything. And what I'm looking for is when I'm doing this scan is where's that pain showing up and where's the joy showing up, and how can we balance this better so that the pain isn't like ruling everything. So the introduction that I'm doing is the master class, 5 simple ways. So I'm going to be teaching a lot of things about how to relieve yourself from shame and blame, how to let go of guilt, because guilt is not conducive to life in general.
True.
Shame and blame isn't either. And we're also going to stabilize so we don't have these emotional outbursts, and so that you can use and learn tools that you can use on yourself to manage your state of being. And they're really simple.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, how might someone who wants to continue the conversation with you or to reach out for a private session with you, how might they do that?
You can go to healingwiththeblues.com, and that is a website that I have that's specifically for the you're going to see free webinar. It's going to change to masterclass, so if you go there quick you'll see that. But you can schedule a 15-minute consult with me there. You can also go to our private group and join that after you answer the 3 questions. The private group is Healing with the Blues - Grief to Relief. And I do a live healing session in there every Tuesday morning at 9:30 Central. So you can be there live. If you join the group, you can watch them all. I've been doing them for a few years. So you can watch those. And you can go to the YouTube channel, Dr. Tanya English.
Wonderful.
Dear Tanya English, there's all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of content out there for you.
I've attended
you can get sick of me
Tuesday
watching
mornings. No, I don't get sick. I've attended sessions in the private group, and it's always very relaxing, very good energy. And, we need to have that. We are in enough space of life and enough noise where I always enjoy that time. I know.
Yeah, and I get to interview people in that group too. And I interviewed you last week, and I have another friend, Kathy Frost, that's coming on tomorrow, and I'll be interviewing her. She's a really amazing nutritional consultant, and just is right in line with what we're talking about. And then during that live session, I always do some healing. We always do some prayer. We always start out with singing the blues, because blues music is a healer, and everybody that plays blues music or is a musician knows that blues is a healer. And one of the reasons why I want to bring that to people, and so I'm doing edutainment, right?
I like it.
Is because blues came from people who were in a hopeless situation, and they had to somehow communicate their feelings without getting killed for it or hurt for it. And so they use blues music to do that. It's a very simple form. So most people, if you go to a jam, they can play a blues song. And that way we can bring people together. And there's all kinds of blues. So if you're thinking blues is only sad music, wait until you hear me sing Middle Age Boogie, which is a great song for women in the middle age.
Maybe we'll have you back and have you sing us a song.
Yeah,
that'd be
Dr.
great. Tanya, it has been such a pleasure having you, and I know your journey has been wonderful, and I hope that you've inspired a few folks when this episode airs, I hope it inspires a few people.
Yeah, and if you don't get to the masterclass, just know that we're going to do it again, so you can continue to stick around for that, and we'll do it again.
Wonderful.
But this one we're going to do on the 23rd, Sunday the 23rd. So
wonderful, and I know it's been a while since we've done a session, but I am going to try to get in there either this Tuesday or next Tuesday, as I'm headed to meet someone new in my life. So
I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you. It's so much fun holding that baby.
Such life. Well, Tanya, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, Kathleen.
I look forward to seeing you and talking with you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Transforming tragedy into treasure, dropping the unforgiveness in order to heal. Wonderful points, as well as many others with Dr. Tanya today. I so enjoyed talking with her. And if you or someone you know is dealing with loss and they could benefit from listening to this episode, please feel free to share this with them. I will have Dr. Tanya's information in the show notes if you or anyone you know would like to contact her directly. I encourage you to please subscribe to Your Life Your Way, as it really helps us grow. And if you're listening on Apple, I would appreciate a great rating if you find it in your heart to do so. Thank you so much. Peace and blessings, and make it a great day.